the Chicago Sky finally clinched the 8th seed in the WNBA playoffs, and we also know the opponent they'll be facing in a win over the Minnesota Lynx. We're going to talk about that game, plus talk about Kahleah Copper and her recent comments on a possible extension. All that plus more right after this.
Welcome to Chicago Sky Central, and here's your host, Haize.
What's going on, Sky fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Sky Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Sky related. I'm the host here, Haize. You guys can follow the channel, more importantly, at Chicago Sky Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And first up, the Chicago Sky have locked in a playoff berth after a tumultuous season. This season has been absolutely all up and down for the Chicago Sky, starting off with so much excitement just by the brand of defense that Chicago Sky team had. But then when you look at the injuries, Isabel Harrison going down in preseason, losing Rebecca Gardner early into the season, right? Both those players being big or expected to have big roles on the Chicago Sky team, and we just did not have it throughout all of that. And losing the number of players that they did, the roster overall, James Wade, head coach and GM James Wade, leaving the franchise to go to the Toronto Raptors, all that, the Sky still make the playoffs. And so we also know that the Sky will be facing off against the Las Vegas Aces, who clinched the number one seed officially with their win last night over the Phoenix Mercury. And so now the Sky are in control. So, all the questions there, they eliminated the Los Angeles Sparks from playoff contention. They will be the 8th seed. They will be facing off against the Los Angeles Sparks. And this was a game that it was honestly, in my opinion, and I don't know if it was just because of the stakes that were included in all this, but the Sky, this was one of the more fun and intense Chicago Sky games all season, in my opinion. And so, we get also Marina Mabrey breaking a record in this, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. But overall, the Chicago Sky, they took care of business and they did what needed to be done, and they have now locked in a playoff spot in a season where it's just been so up and down. Now, in this game, a fun game to see, Kahleah Copper leads the way once again for the Chicago Sky, scoring 20 points in this game, going 7 of 18 from the field, 5 of 8 from three-point range. She's also chips in 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal. She did have 4 turnovers in this game. Her and Courtney Williams turning the ball over, accounting for over half of the total Chicago Sky turnovers in this game. But overall, Kahleah Copper played the way that we needed her to play. Marina Mabrey hits 4 3-pointers in this game. She also clinches a record, which, like I said, we'll talk about here in a second. But she goes 6 of 14, 19 points from her in this game. Courtney Williams, 6 of 11 for 13 points. And Elena Smith, who I hope is going to win Most Improved Player of the Year, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist in this game. And Ruthie Hibbert in this game, having one of her better games this season, only playing 12 minutes, but goes 4 or 5 from the field, 10 points, play some solid defense in times where we need it as well. Dana Evans scores 9 points overall, but let's be clear here. Dana Evans scored 7 quick points and on 3 possessions in the second quarter for the Chicago Sky that really started sparking it. At that point, the Chicago Sky had a 3-point deficit. They turn it over in one quarter. They go from being down 19-16 to take a halftime lead, 44-39 in this game. And so, listen, this was a intense basketball game. You could feel that both teams were fighting and trying to contend in this one. The Minnesota Lynx also dropped down to the 5th seed with this loss as well. They're in a tie with Atlanta, so still playoff implications going into the last day of the WNBA season on Sunday. But listen, this team took care of business. We talked about the grit, the determination, the Chicago-style team and atmosphere that we needed for this Sky team to go into the playoffs. And I said it before, it was not going to be easy, but the Sky do well enough, right, to go ahead and clinch that spot. We got 1 game left coming up on Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. But overall, love the way that the Sky played this game, man, winning their last 2 games against the Fever and then coming up in this game against the Minnesota Lynx. We play against the Connecticut Sun on Sunday, so we'll be on the lookout for how well they play in that game. That's a 1 p.m. Tip-off time for the Chicago Sky, at least on the Eastern wide. But, with everything being locked up now, we can really take a look at what this season was for the Chicago Sky. And this was a difficult season, a season that was filled with a lot of long losing streaks. The Chicago Sky having over, 3, I think, separate 4 or more losses in a row stretches this season, right? Never in this season, or only once in the season, that the Chicago Sky have won 3 games in a row. So again, it's been a difficult season for the Chicago Sky. It's been up and down. They did not have a lot of the firepower that they expected to have most of the season. I think when you look at potentially having Rebecca Gardner and Isabel Harrison for the full season, the Sky, it takes on a different outlook, especially with the way that Elena Smith was able to play this year. And when you talk about potentially moving Elena Smith to the bench, right, in the season that she's had, and her and Dana Evans kind of leading that second unit, and Rebecca Gardner for that matter, and having Isabel Harrison in the two-way player that she is, it's starting for that Sky. The season takes a very different look. So, we'll see what happens if the Chicago Sky retain Elena Smith this year. It's gonna, hey, listen, with the season that she's had, it could get costly for the Chicago Sky to be able to kind of keep this team together and see what this team looks like, hopefully fully healthy next season. But now we move into the playoffs. Almost every seed is officially set at this point in time, so we'll know what that's like. Let's get through Sunday, and we'll see like the final shakeout. But either way, the Chicago Sky will be facing off against the Las Vegas Aces in round one, and this is going to be something that it's going to be an interesting matchup. The games that the Sky have played against the Las Vegas Aces, they haven't looked the best in, right? But they've had quarters. They've had things that they can build in certain ways that they've looked at certain times, especially when they lock in defensively, that they've been able to punch with them a little bit, right? When you look at our first game against the Las Vegas Aces this year, we lost that game 93-80, right? So a 13-point loss, but we were in that game in the first half. It got away from us. You know that's not that's going to happen with a team with firepower like that. The second game, we lost 107-95, another double-digit loss with that one. And then the last game we played against them, we lost 94-87. So not really the most positive outlook with it. But this Chicago Sky team, if they dig in, if they play the brand of defense that we know that they are capable of, Elizabeth Williams is going to be hugely important in that series. The Chicago Sky to make it interesting. Am I picking them to win the series? No, I'm not a fool, right? I mean, let's just be real with it, right? It would be one of the biggest upsets in WNBA playoff history if the Sky were able to eliminate the Las Vegas Aces. Not expecting that at all, but I want to see this team use this playoff berth to just perform, put it all out. The Sky are playing with house money, right? Nobody's expecting them to win this series, and nobody should. But come in, make it interesting, put up a fight, see how you perform, and it's going to give more points to evaluate for the GM as we move into next season. But with that said, in this game, Marina Mabrey sets the record for most three-pointers in a single season in Chicago Sky history. She passed Allie Quigley, who had the record before. Marina Mabrey on the season shooting 37.9% from three-point line, and she's a full-time starter here. So, we'll see. We talked about it a little bit in last episode that with more games being played in the WNBA, you're going to see more records like this broken. Marina Mabrey has another game to kind of put that record even higher than what it is right now. And, it is what it is. That Marina Mabrey, this season has been a tough one for her at times. I think finding her spot, her and Kahleah Copper kind of finding their roles together and both being players that can be very ball dominant. I also think Marina Mabrey at times has let, some of the things frustrate her and get her out of her game sometimes. We'll see what happens next year. She's going to theoretically be here for a long time coming. We'll see what happens with Kahleah Copper over in this season as well. But I like the balance that they've started to find, right? And so, we'll see how that continues for her here with the Chicago Sky. But overall, we'll see. I like Marina Mabrey's game a lot. I like how tough she is on both sides of the ball. I like how petty she could be. As a petty person myself, I don't mind that at all. I actually like to see that in my players. So I'm not going to hate on that portion of it at all. I like what she's brought. Hopefully that continues, and we'll see just how she keeps paying off for the Chicago Sky in this year. 84 three-pointers made so far for her. I think the record was 81 coming into this game. So she's already separated herself a lot with one more game left to go. We'll see how she's able to perform in that. But, overall. Now, one of the biggest things coming into this season was, and I think the reason why James Wade did what he did with trading as many first-round picks to get Marina Mabrey in, going out aggressively attacking free agency like James Wade did, was to ensure Kahleah Copper was going to re-sign here. Well, we got some words from Kahleah Copper in regard to when she was asked about if she would sign an extension before the end of the season with the Chicago Sky. Keep in mind, the Sky have until Sunday, which is the last day of the WNBA season, to lock in Kahleah Copper to an extension. And she says this: I can't give away too much, but it's possible. And when asked about one of the things that she would need to go ahead and feel comfortable signing that extension with the Sky, she said this: "I need to know the foundation and what's to come. There's a lot of things that are not in order right now, and I need in order before I sign an extension or re-sign." What does she consider not in order? She says this: the GM. Who is the GM? And I think that is, listen, I can respect it. I know as a Chicago Sky fan, I want her to be locked in. I want her because she loves the city. She's talked about how much the city of Chicago reminds her of where she's from in Philly and the feeling that she has for this team. But overall, I think it just comes down to it. You have to know the direction. You are locking in your career. And while the WNBA, it's easier to kind of move around and contracts tend to be shorter, Kahleah Copper isn't getting any younger, right? And she's shown that what the Sky needed to see from her, that she can be a number one on the team. Now, yeah, the team didn't have the success that we would want to see as far as record-wise, but Kahleah Copper has stepped up her game every step of the way. Just turning 29 late last month, just a couple of weeks ago, did Kahleah Copper. And before she re-signs with the team, she wants to make sure that the direction and the path of that team aligns with her goals. And so, with not having a GM, I highly doubt we're going to have a GM in place by Sunday. We'll see what that means for Kahleah Copper signing an extension by tomorrow with the Sky. I don't find it likely. The Sky are going to have to try to woo Kahleah Copper this offseason. I expect her to hit unrestricted free agency, and the Sky are going to have to do their work and their due diligence. Whoever they bring in as the GM is going to have to sell Kahleah Copper on their vision of the team and the direction of the team. And, you have to ask yourself in the season where you had to claw your way to get that last seed in the WNBA playoffs, you can't really sell them on the results that came this year, right? The team that they had around them this year. Now, yeah, we have injuries and things like that absolutely hurt the Chicago Sky and their chances to, really just walk into the playoffs without having to claw in it in the second to last game. But they're going to have to do the work. And, maybe Kahleah Copper signs a shorter term deal, an extension like the next one that we're going to talk about. But overall, I hope that Kahleah Copper remains a member of the Chicago Sky. The Sky are going to have to do their work. They're going to have to try to convince her. And if Kahleah Copper does sign an extension with the Chicago Sky, it means that she feels confident in the direction that this team and the path that this team is on. If she doesn't and goes to unrestricted free agency, as we know, once a player can take meetings with other teams, you open yourself up for their pitch to be better than the pitch that you can put together. And unfortunately, I don't know if we had been in this position if James Wade had stayed. But overall, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You can only do so much. And so it's up to the Chicago Sky to really pull it together and to lock in Kahleah Copper, because if she leaves and walks in free agency, the future gets a little bit more uncertain with the Chicago Sky. I hesitate to say bleak because, this is the WNBA. Much like we went out and got Marina Mabry and we brought in Elena Smith. Like, if you're smart and you look at and you survey the landscape and pick the right free agents, you can get back going in the WNBA, at least to be a solid team pretty quickly. But losing Kahleah Copper, what she's meant to the Chicago Sky, being one of the better players, two-way players in the WNBA, and just the heart of this team, right? I would hate to lose her and see her go, but I want to throw the question to you guys. As it comes right now, do you think Kahleah Copper signs an extension with the Chicago Sky before the end of the season? And if you don't think that, do you think that she's going to lock in a long-term deal in the offseason with the Chicago Sky? Let me know all that down below. But all right, we got only one thing to go around the WNBA that I do want to talk about, and that's Kayla McBride signing an extension with the Minnesota Lynx. And so she's now signed through the 2025 season, so that's a 2-year extension. In the first year, the deal is going to be worth $208,000, and in the second year, $205,000 in that second year of the season. So, it is what it is. The Minnesota Lynx are going to have about $640,000 in cap space next offseason. So that's going to be a team that can definitely try to make a move next offseason. And you look at who they have locked in. They got McBride, Kahleah, Jessica Shepard, Diamond Miller, and Dorka all on the books for next year. So, that's going to be a team that right now tied with the 5th seed that is going to that could potentially make a move for a big name free agent and really take that team kind of over the top. Now, again, they're still going to be below the Liberty and Las Vegas Aces, but, we'll end up seeing. So, that's one thing from around the W that I wanted to see, but the WNBA playoffs is kicking off, and, man, let's let one more day of the WNBA season, and we get WNBA playoff basketball. And for those that love the WNBA, or maybe even those that are new to the WNBA playoff basketball is a whole different beast. So I'm glad that we get to talk about at least a few games, hopefully, with the Chicago Sky in the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you're following the show at Chicago Sky Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoSkyCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag, 773-270-2799. And that's it for me for today. I'll see you guys next time we go to Skytown. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.